3 local community organizers made their way Thanksgiving week to the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation in North Dakota. Grecia Rojas, a community organizer for the True North Community Organizing Network, Manuel Saavedra, Latino Outreach Coordinator for College of the Redwoods, and Jacob Patterson, community organizer and gender activist, arrived at Standing Rock the 19th of November and were on hand the following night for the clash with militarized police on Backwater Bridge. I sat down with all 3 Monday afternoon in a conference room in the Wild Rivers Foundation offices in Crescent City and listened to their story. Many times they fought back tears as they recounted their time on the barricades, huddled under Backwater Bridge trying to stave off tear gas, consoling the injured and freezing. The story of these 3 young people is harrowing and can be difficult to hear, but it is our story, and so it is one we all need to know. Here now are Grecia Rojas, Manuel Saavedra, and Jacob Patterson. Why did you guys go to Standing Rock Thanksgiving weekend?
Mm-hmm.
Why did you choose to spend your Thanksgiving there?
I've been wanting to go to Standing Rock for months now, and I knew that looking at work, that this would be the most time I could go without, any interruption, and also like the history behind Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that would be a great moment to really show some solidarity with the folks at Standing Rock, and really take a look at that. We're not celebrating the history of Thanksgiving at the camp. It's more community, it's solidarity, it's fighting for water. So those were my reasons why I wanted to go. But mostly, before that, my priority was to just spend as much time as I could at the camp.
Manny, same question.
Well, like Grecia, I've been really, really wanting to go to Standing Rock. And work and school just never let me have enough free time. So yeah, Thanksgiving was the most time that I was going to be able to, most free time that I had to spend. And I thought Standing Rock would be the best time in the world.
Who organized the trip?
I did. Mm-hmm. I asked work, and we have a coworker, Thomas Joseph, out there. He's been out there for a few months now. Kind of leading the California camp, Climate River Basin camp. And so asked work if it'd be okay to go and bring some people along who are also involved with True North Organizing Network. And just said, hey, come with. I want to take as many people as we could possibly fit in an SUV. Because it's not just about going as one person. It's like bringing a team that is willing to also fight.
How many people did you get to come along?
It was 4 of us total.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Another friend flew in and then drove back with us. But, you bring your camping equipment, everything you can. And so it was a really tight squeeze.
So how did that work out? Jacob was telling me you got there, just after or just before midnight, Saturday night, I guess it was. Mm-hmm. So how do you find a place? I just showing up at a place like this, how do you find a spot to camp and what's it like once you get there that night?
Well, we were driving in, and first of all, we followed Google Maps, which the website advises you not to, and that's because there's a huge blockade. And we were told by friends, but, it was late. We were just anxious to get to the camp. That we just kind of went with following Google, and it led us to a camp. It led us to the blockade, and we were greeted by officers and a huge tank. How many officers were there, fully armed?
10.
10 officers.
Wow.
And so it just had us turn around. And by that point, I was honestly, there was a kind of a moment of silence in the car right after that moment, because I was shooken up. And so at that point, you're just we were just wanting to get to the camp as soon as possible. And it took another kind of hour because they block the main entrance. We were, I think, even less than 15 minutes away, but we had to go all the way around.
How do you get in? I know that they're trying to restrict access to the camps and keep people away, but how do you get in? Do you just kind of go off-road? Are there back ways and things?
There's other roads. There's just roads that connect to the camp, but the easiest route is what they blocked off.
Okay.
the most convenient and less time route is what they blocked off. And then we made it to the casino. We still were still lost. So we made it back and finally to the camp where it's just, you're beat. It's cold. You just want to get to bed. Security is at the front gates, and it's like the camp security. So you're just asking questions like, how do we get to here? How do we get to that? And not everybody knows specifically who's who because there's so many people. So you're trying to kind of direct yourself, and it's a lot of camp set up, tents and all sorts of places where people sleep, that it was a little bit hard to navigate. And we were just about to set up camp anywhere. We were up to a point of, I think, circulating the camp for a minimum of 30 minutes or so, trying to find our people. And we were ready to just kind of quit and camp anywhere. But I don't know how we found our people and set up camp.
Well, I remember the first couple of people that we talked to, first we spoke with a car full of young women from Minnesota. And we were just like asking like, hey, that was when we were trying to give up and just pitch a tent somewhere. Like, is it cool if we sit here? And so then we spoke to a couple of indigenous men from Alaska. And so we're just like driving around kind of asking people like, hey, you know where Cali Camp is? The Red Warrior Camp, which is kind of one of the more well-known like sub-camps within Oceti-Sakowin. We asked them for directions, and so I think that they sort of reconfirmed what we'd already heard, which was Cali Camp was somewhere near this really large white geodome that was on the right side of camp. And so we just sort of like wound up over there, and we're just like, I think this is it. We wound up settling.
So Jacob talked earlier about what it was like, you know, when she gets up in the morning and goes out to do what you called your journalistic thing, right? And go interview. And it's all like chipper and happy. This is Sunday the 20th. What was that day like before everything happened at night for you guys? How did you spend that first day in camp? I know what you did. You went around and interviewed people, right? So what you were talking about how happy and bouncy it all was. It was all nice, beautiful day, blue sky sort of thing.
Yeah. In addition to that, they have an orientation for people who have just arrived to do. And so we spent the morning, was that Sunday that we did that? Because we didn't, yeah. So we went to orientation, which was about an hour. We went to a training on direct action.
What do you pick up in a training on direct action then?
They talked about like the logistics of what's going to happen. First, you have to do some reflecting, and are you here as an arrestable? Are you willing to go to jail during an action? What sort of direction you'll be given from organizers? If you are not willing, when can you step out? They did some training on marching and how to create human barriers and how to create bonds and trust with the people that you're acting with. They had legal come in and do share their hotline number that if you were to be arrested, you would call immediately as your first call if you were given that right. And
to add with that, orientation is just honest. It's an intentional conversation about race as well, because they've experienced that when there's people of color who are at the front lines, contact engagement with police officers is more likely to happen. Arrests are more likely to happen. People are injured, it's most likely to happen.
Wow.
So they have an intentional conversation about, like, if you're white and you're an ally and you're here for reasons, you have to step it up and be a true ally and acknowledge your privilege. Because when we've heard people say that when as a person of color, especially Native, they saw physically they saw the difference between when they were praying with people of color and when they were praying with white allies. So that's a big kind of like, boom, this is a reality, this is what's happening.
Wow.
And so
and that's a pretty sort of naked presentation of racist America in that regard. I mean, if you were white and you're going up to these police officers, you're going to be treated very differently, right? Yeah. That's wow. Okay. Did you get any indication that there was any action planned at all that you were preparing for? Was there a specific thing?
They say that, the message, I think that blanket message is that there's organizing happening every single day and every morning, and different camps lead different actions at different points of the day or the week. And if the blanket message is you're there to fight, you're a water warrior. Water warriors are who is sleeping in this camp, and so you have to come and go and be a part of that, be a part of the fight. Just kind of kicking back and doing nothing.
Well, yeah.
Or you are working the kitchen or chopping wood, construction, whatever, constant working. So that was my big coming back is just how it was hard. It's not just to lay back, but I wanted to give me any.
Well, with Grecia, yes, I definitely during orientation, you could sense that the organizers and the people leading this are well aware of injustices happening to people of color, and they make it towards where they create this safe space for people of color to voice their opinions, because that's not the norm, unfortunately. And with that, there's a lot of yes, white allies, let's recognize that people of color have it differently than you. And I think it's a very wonderful, shocking experience for those people, those individuals that have never had to encounter police brutality or have never had to seen an officer pointing a gun in their face. And it's kind of this sense of wow, now I know what people of color deal with. Now I understand what it's like fearing police officers.
Yeah, that's an incredibly different mindset, that kind of takes you out of every safe spot that you think you have, right? So Sunday, you spend the day, you go through these things. Sunday night happens, and I was just on Facebook that night, and I got Kevin Gilbert pops up, and I start watching this, and I'm like, oh my God, where were you guys when all this was happening? What was your experience of the bridge?
So we all had different stories because I think we were not together at the time. And I'll speak for myself. We had just kind of had some food. It was dinner time, and I was going to have a conversation with a few people. We had planned to regroup at 7. So we were just kind of at the fire getting warm. And then we just hear water warriors, front lines. And we turn around and we go and we see just, a big group of people going towards the blockade. And I kind of just grabbed my gloves, put my jacket, my jacket was on, but kind of just zipped it up and kind of went forward. But then somebody's here, and they hand me something to cover my face and goggles, and it didn't hit me that that's what that meant. And wow. We go up there and we go straight to the front lines, and that's when they took out the water cannons. And then tear gas was thrown in multiple directions, and I experienced tear gas multiple times that night. And it was awful. It sucked. It was painful. You hear people screaming and you see people injured. I saw a man get shot with a rubber bullet on the head, and his skin split open. He was bleeding everywhere. Wow. And trying to get the medics to help, and trying to hide under the bridge and kind of moving. And so I think we were there at 7. At the front lines.
Manny, what was your experience?
Well, I was with Jacob. we had a conversation previous to this about police brutality and my own experience with being a man of color and living in San Diego, 30 minutes away from the border. And I was just processing all this. All the things that are normal to me, unfortunately, seeing the police the way I do, and I remember that Jacob, I think she wanted to go have a personal conversation back home. So we split ways. And then I remember being on Facebook and seeing a live stream of just this, I think it was just chaos. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, is this Iraq? Is this in the Middle East? Or is this... I would have never thought that this was a mile away from me.
Yeah.
And as soon as I noticed the location, I remember just rushing back towards my backpack and just completely unpacking all the clothes, all the equipment that I had, and filling that up with goggles, masks, and water. Because after seeing that live stream, I knew what was going to happen. I had some idea. Mm-hmm. So my first immediate reaction was filling up my backpack with supplies, equipment, and whatnot, and rushing towards the front lines. There was a lot of people that at least I didn't see a lot of people with masks and goggles. So I started giving that out, yelling at the top of my lungs, "Who needs goggles? You need them, take these." And finally getting up to the front lines, I remember there was the first wave of pepper spray. There was this kid, couldn't have been more than 19. And I'm assuming it was his first time being pepper sprayed. And he just immediately runs. I remember an older gentleman yelling at him, "Don't panic, don't panic." And I rushed after him, and I had water, and like as soon as I caught up to him, I made him kneel down. I was like, "You're gonna be fine, you're gonna be fine. Take off the goggles, the mask." And I helped him out because during orientation, you're giving kind of this quick tips to removing pepper spray and helping your fellow like your family in that camp, so mm-hmm. helping family members. And after I helped him, I couldn't believe it. This 19-year-old kid had experienced that. And I remember him going back to the front lines.
Wow.
And of course, I just rushed back because I was out of supplies. I rushed back to the camp. My main priority was making sure that everybody had the materials and equipment that they needed in order to peacefully protest. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then coming back, yeah, I do remember coming back to the front lines and seeing somebody get shot in the head with a rubber bullet, immediately falls down, blood everywhere. I didn't know if he was dead or not. Mm-hmm. So immediately you hear people call, like, "Medic, we need a medic, we need to get this person out of here, we need to get him to safety." So, and this is at the same time that they're spraying people with water, pepper spraying, throwing tear gas, and we get him out, or the medics, people that are properly like trained to deal with these situations, they come in, they bring that person out. And I remember just like after seeing so much blood, just like these ideas start popping in my head. The first one was, am I gonna die here? The second one was, am I ready for that? Mm-hmm. And I was. These are people that have driven God knows how many miles in order to stand in solidarity with Standing Rock. And I also remember previous social justice movements. I remember like seeing the police brutality, people being lynched for standing up for what they believe in. Mm-hmm. So yeah, after thinking about that, I was proud to stand with people who are willing to give up their bodies for this.
Jacob, tell me about your Sunday night.
So as Manuel said, we split ways, and there's a hill that they refer to as Facebook Hill in the camp, which is like the only area that you can get signal. So I was trying to call some people and check in back home. and I was sitting at a picnic table with some other campers, and I just like got off the phone and like tuned into their conversation, and they were discussing the front line and what had happened, and they said that that they had started drilling despite not having their permit in place, which is pretty much like the fine that they would get for doing so is nothing compared to the profit that they would take in should they do it. So really it doesn't even matter. They can kind of do whatever they want at this point. And so they said that they had started drilling, and so everyone had rushed to the front line, and that 3 women had been shot in the face with rubber bullets. So that's what I heard before I knew what was going on at all. And so I'm just like, I gotta go. So I went off of the hill. I ran by our camp and no one else was there. I called Manny when I ran and exited the camp and got onto Highway 1806 on my way to the bridge. And I called Manny once I got there and said, like, where are you? This is happening right now. We spoke for a minute and I didn't see him again for a while. So I get to the front line and this was the first time that I had seen the barricade. And the barricade had been there for quite some time.
And I want to be clear, the barricade was put there by law enforcement, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, to block access in.
Right. And this is on reservation land.
Oh, wow.
And they are cutting off access. They're cutting off access to the camp, but this is also a highway running through a reservation that they're restricting access to. And like Grecia said, ambulances have to come in there all the time. People need medical attention that are at the camp. They have to take this much, much, much longer route. This is like a health hazard that law enforcement is imposing on the people who are camping there. So,
the reports I've read are unclear. They never really say where the barricades come from. And it was in something I read about this. But these people are up there trying to push the barricade. Like this burned out truck was just there and nobody understands why it was there.
Right.
So I wanted to clarify that. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. So people had apparently tried to remove the barricade, and that's when law enforcement just came out strong with the rubber bullets and pepper spray and tear gas.
Did you get a concussion grenade? That's what I read. There was a woman who was hit in the arm with a concussion grenade.
Yes, they were also using those as well. And yes. So I had my camera. I also didn't grab any goggles or any mask or anything. And it was actually interesting to kind of reflect back on how I just assumed that I wouldn't need it. Maybe I've never been brutalized by police. It's something that I can look at videos online that I can be aware of, but without personally experiencing it, I was probably just naive and assumed oh yeah, I'm just gonna like flit up to the front line and get some good footage and show everyone what's really going on and how like messed up they're being, but like I'll be okay. Right? So stupid. I was stupid. So I go and I start shooting a bit with my camera. And I went right up to the front line. I was standing just side by side with the barbed wire that they had placed on top of the cement walls of the barricade. And I'm looking at the police officers. And it's just, we as a group had a lot of conversations about humanizing them and about being able to empathize with them and just sort of what must be going through their minds and stuff. And I would like it noted that 9 officers of the Morton County Sheriff's Department resigned, or police.
I don't know what officers, but yeah.
9.
Because they're recruiting from all across the neighboring states and even Border Patrol.
Wow.
And so I don't know what officers from where.
because everything is so, intersected as far as what departments they're bringing in. It is hard to confirm, but we know that 9 officers resigned just during our time there. And I think that it's stories like that are really important to share, because people who can justify their behaviors and talk about, the rowdy protesters, someone has to keep them in line. Well, the methods that they're using to, quote unquote, keep them in line and restore law and order are so disturbing and so upsetting that the officers themselves are not able to cope with what they're being asked to do. So that is an important bit to share. So back to my Sunday night, I'm watching these officers, and after that humanizing anecdote I just shared, it's kind of contrasted by how I was watching these officers that night, because they're just laughing. They're, chit-chatting. They are jovial. Meanwhile, on the other side of me, 10 feet away, people are being shot in the head with rubber bullets. I personally held the front line for a while. First, I shot with my camera for about maybe 45 minutes, an hour. I got there around 8:30. And then I watched an altercation with 2 actually there were a couple of them. There was a young indigenous man who got into a fight with another young man for some reason. And the first was very aggressive. I think he was trying to throw things across the barricade at officers. He was just screaming, and people were trying to calm him down, being like, "No, this we're peaceful, we're prayerful, we're going to stand here, but we can't, act like that." And he was just crying and was so upset. And it's just a lot to process. I'm struggling to tell this story because so much happened that night, and you saw so many horrible things, and I haven't even really gone through all of it yet. So, watching young indigenous people be brutalized on their own land and be told how to feel and how to act to gain people's respect, it's just sort of ludicrous. Why is it that they have to remain the noble native? Why is it that they have to be the peaceful protester when this system of violence has been perpetuated against them for hundreds of years now? So, let's see. This was down off of the highway in an area of there was a grassy slope from the highway that led down into some dirt that would then lead to the river. The Missouri was right there. And people built a fire up in that area. And so the Morton County Sheriff said that they were only using the water cannon to put fires out, which is a lie and I believe that they have since admitted to it, that they were also using it for crowd control. But they were shooting it at the fire as well. That being said, I believe it was around 23 or 24 degrees that night, and they are using a water cannon to shoot protectors at point blank range. People were literally frozen. They were just, the barbed wire that I stood in front of was just frozen icicles all over it. There was a young man that, when I held the front line on the highway, We had like plastic storage bin lids, sheet metal, cardboard, some like halves of tubs. People just anything you could use to create a shield. They had created a wall with them, and so I was standing side by side with this young man, and he was funny. First of all, his spirits were very high, and he was just talking about we were going to hold this line forever, and we weren't going anywhere, and making jokes. If he could get some coffee delivered up to the front, that would be great. Anybody got any snacks? Any smokes? Like, he was a trip. So finally, I held that line with him for about 2 hours. Meanwhile, we're maybe 15 feet away from the armored truck on the other side with the water cannon on top of it, and they were just shooting us, just pummeling the wall. I had these really crappy gloves on. My hands were just super cold. I had water dripping down into my hood. I had some snow pants and 2 layers of long johns underneath, and it was just all up in there. I was the coldest I have ever been. And finally I was like, it's an honor to hold this line with you, but like, I gotta go right now. I need a break. And so I left, and I didn't see him until I was down by the fire. This was sometime later, and probably an hour. I saw him an hour later, and he was just gray with ice. Like his coat, his pants, his face. He was coated entirely in ice. Wow. And he's just shaking so bad that he couldn't talk. People started, grabbing all of his like wet clothes and putting emergency blankets around him and shoving like hand warmers in his armpits and pockets and stuff. And I saw another woman, who didn't have any of his gear that he had on. He had on some nice coats. She was running around with a rain poncho on. Just this guttural scream. Just, you guys are committing violence. You are shooting women and children. Is this worth the money? She was just bellowing, this tiny, tiny little woman. People eventually had to drag her away from the barricade because she was going into hypothermic shock, and her eyes were dilating, and she was just completely like gone into her feelings and into her rage, into the injustice of it all. I also went into some mild hypothermic shock by the end of the night. I stayed out there from about 8:30 p.m. till 2 a.m. And I was pretty much the worst was the water cannon. That was what really got me. I was also tear gassed while we were on the front line. And I kind of started to panic because I'd never been tear gassed before. And I told everyone at first, I gotta go. I was holding up all these boards and stuff with them. And I said, I have to go. Because I didn't know what was happening and I didn't know what I needed to do, but I knew I couldn't be under the pressure of like holding up these boards and being shot directly at the whole time. But I just sort of like, froze and just like ducked down, and just like the snot started pouring out of my nose, and I started crying, and my mouth and my nose are burning and my face is just on fire. And I just like, just breathed through it and held it together, and eventually it passed, and I felt, like I could keep going, and so I just stayed there and worked through it. Yeah.
What was the aftermath of that night, the next day in the camps?
Well, I wish I would have given a better detailed story like you did.
I thought I took too much time, so.
No, because I was just thinking, like, this is really important. Like, I really want whoever's listening to this to really imagine we are being peaceful. There's this huge barricade, and there's cops on the other side, fully armed, geared up, helmets, what's that protective gear on their mouths and nose?
What, like a gas mask?
A gas mask. I can't even think right now. Guns. Like, they're fully geared, and we're on the other side without any weapons. And we are being peaceful. We're using words. We're using language to try to talk to these people. And I heard many conversations, like people saying, like, we have the right to be here and protest. Like, stop what you're doing. Like, you're dehumanizing people. And then just, I remember that, like, we met up when when we saw that woman with hypothermia. And then earlier that day, like, running in multiple directions to try to get away from the tear gas, because after a point they were just shooting in an arc style, like boom, 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 like 10 at a time. There's just no way to outrun those tear gases. I remember this girl, she was like, we look at each other and we're like, where should we run? So we run underneath the bridge, and we like put our emergency blanket over us, and we're talking to each other like, you're okay, you're okay. And then we smell the tear gas, and we uncover, and tear gas is everywhere, and we couldn't run from it. So then we start running, and then we lose each other, and I never saw her again. But that's when you fall to the ground, and it just penetrates every part of your body. And your face burns, it feels like you're choking, and then it feels like you're dying because you can't breathe, you can't see, your eyes are burning, everything is burning, and you're just on the ground kind of crawling, trying to get your breath back and trying to get away from the clouds. And it was hard. Like, you just couldn't escape tear gas. I just wanted to give more visuals to people, because I was just grabbing food, and someone's like, how was it? And I was like, it was not like a fun time. And I asked, well, didn't you see videos? And they're like, well, were people looting? And it's like,
Why?
Wait, who said this?
Just some young person.
There or after?
No, here in Crescent
Oh, okay.
City.
I was going, what would they be? What would they be looting?
But that's it. Nobody was looting, because we're just there and like praying. But it's like, I just want people to really like think about this, like humans unarmed against other people who are like fully geared with bullets and tear gas and cannons and water. It's like, how do you even compare? And so, like, I feel like we're the three of us are having a hard time, because we're trying not to cry, we're trying not to get upset.
There's
during this conversation.
Definitely a feel of trauma here. I mean, I got that from Jacob when I walked in and started talking to him. So, yeah, how do you go and experience even, I mean, let alone a week, but a night like this, and not kind of be run over by it? I mean, that's insane. Thoughts, Manny?
Yeah. So during the training and the preparation of this in the morning, Sunday morning, I remember one of the elders was talking to me, and just the fact that he was so appreciative of people willing to drive over here, spend time, their energy, lay down their bodies for this fight. I remember him telling us, like, y'all are family. Like, this is, like, I'm not even close to my family like this. So that was one thing that really, like, it helped me stay out there on the bridge for as long as I did. And I also remember thinking, like, after thinking, like, all about the movements in the past and just, like, people that are willing to even die for this cause, like social justice. So yeah, I just to give a little bit more context of that night, I went back to the camp one last time, or two more times, and just filling up my backpack with equipment, goggles and masks and all that. Again, going back outside, giving that to the people that really do need it. And I remember not seeing Grecia or Jacob for a really, really long time. I got very, 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 very worried. So, and like on top of just like all this smoke everywhere, I remember So I saw a lot of people get shot that day with rubber bullets, and for one split second, maybe it was naive of me to think, but I thought one of the police officers would at least have this sense of like, what did I just do?
Mm-hmm.
In my head, I was just imagining what that would look like. Somebody just like shooting somebody else, a person that was praying point blank. And I'm sorry, like it's just crazy to think that somebody can do that and not show a little bit of remorse, or I hope that person is still alive. I hope they're still breathing. So again, I went back to the camp, and then I remember not seeing Jacob. I was extremely worried for her. I saw Grecia, and I knew that we have all been through hell and back in high water. But still, not knowing how Jacob was doing really, really got me worried. So I go back to camp. I look everywhere. I can't find her. I go outside, back to the front lines one last time, and just like seeing everybody still fighting, seeing people that are just broken, are just complete, like they cannot take it, but still there. And I remember looking everywhere, looking at every single fire, every single group of people trying to huddle, stay warm, trying to like save each other's lives. And I couldn't find her. I remember walking back, just feeling this hole in my stomach and just looking at the ground, because after a while it's unreal. It's like you can't believe that this is happening. So I was looking at the ground, walking back, and I just see so much blood everywhere, so many jackets thrown on the ground, literally frozen. I would like to bring up the point that Grecia made earlier. Regardless if these water protectors, the only thing that they were doing was peacefully praying, and they were met with this hostile force. And like Grecia, somebody asked me, what were they doing? Did the protesters throw something at them? And even if they did, if you can justify all the things that the police officers were doing to a massive group of people for just throwing one rock or throwing anything. I would say that they're the problem. Though that kind of thinking is the problem. Because if you can justify any form of inhumane tactics being done of people that are on their land, people that have tried to remain peaceful as long as they could, I would say that they're the problem. But again, just seeing all the blood, seeing all the empty tear gas canisters, all the rubber bullets, I felt horrible not knowing where Jacob was. Mm-hmm. So after getting back to camp, going to my tent, I remember seeing her just completely in shock, I thought. And she wanted to go to sleep. I remember that. She just wanted to go to sleep. And I was like, no, you can't.
No.
So I picked her up. I walked with her to the nearest little hut that there was, the nearest tent. And it was the the kitchen area. And there's always a heater going off there. I sat her down. I grabbed her a little coffee. Just trying to like help her not freeze to death because she was completely drenched. So we got her jacket off. She changed. One of the people that were sitting with us near the stove or the heater told us, make sure not to put your foot like close, because even though it's frozen, it'll still burn. I remember the first thing that Jacob did was just like put her feet directly on the little stove.
It wasn't even that hot. Like
all you could hear is
I couldn't feel anything.
And that's like, I don't know, just at the end of the night, knowing that everybody or the people that I was with were safe, I don't know, when I hear people say that they can't wait to go to Standing Rock and they can't wait to do this, and that, it really does take a lot of
No, go on. I'm sorry.
so it really does take a lot of values and morals, and you have to bring it.
Yeah, it's not Burning Man.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's not Burning Man.
Jacob has to go to a meeting, and before you go, would you be willing to speak about the aftermath, what we were talking about before the interview started, what you have brought back emotionally from this week? And I realize you've been back 48 hours now? More than that, maybe, but you were saying, we were talking about the trauma of having experienced this and come back. Before you take off, can you speak to that?
I feel like I am not the same person right now. I feel like I've already said that I'm having a little bit of trouble processing everything, and that's going to be something that I'm going to have to figure out for the next little while. But right now I feel like I am just sort of flat. And most of the conversations that I have with people, they're meaningless. Like, I don't know what I'm doing back here in Crescent City. I don't know why I came back, but I just know how imperative the next couple of weeks are going to be for whatever's going to happen out at Standing Rock. And I wish that I had been in a position where I could have stayed longer. But what I have brought back with me is a very strong sense of urgency. And like, I literally don't want to talk about anything else but Standing Rock, while at the same time, do not ask me a single question about Standing Rock. So as soon as I am really able to get through the sense of like numbness and of shock that I am in right now, I know that I'm going to be on my bullhorn next and putting myself in a position to educate people on some of the finer points of Standing Rock for those who are misinformed, and strongly urging everyone to support in some way, if it's your body, and if it is your body, on how to use that vessel appropriately when you're in that space over there. If you are unable to be present physically, then like, there are people, it is not Burning Man. It is not easy, but changing a system that is corrupt and evil and has been dealing out, injustices since the dawn of time isn't easy. These protectors need resources, they need money, and I strongly urge anybody who is able to do so to donate. If you're in the local area, if you're near the Klamath, please donate to the Oceti Shakowin. That's OCETISAKOWIN, camp.org. So please go to their website and give what you can, because it's winter and it is real cold out there.
And again, the best possible donation for something so far afield from where we are is money, right?
Yes.
Yeah, to help them do with it what they may.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Jacob, thank you.
Yeah.
Grecia, Manny, can you take me through the rest of your week? What was that like, the movie? I saw some posts from a march outside the Morton County Sheriff's Department, and I think that's the last thing I actually saw online this week before Thanksgiving happened and stuff. So what was it like? What was it like on the ground there after Sunday night?
After Sunday night, we had you don't sleep, right? Like, I didn't sleep that night, not only because you are traumatized, you're scared, you don't know what's going to happen, you still hear the shootings of the tear gas, you hear the helicopter going back and forth, and because we were, like, I think I was at the front lines from 7 to close to midnight, and went back to camp, and not knowing where Jacob was, not knowing where Manny was, and being really nervous about it, and then kind of falling asleep. But I still had dreams of just being there on the front lines and just like, I remembered I had this dream where I was just yelling for Jacob and still being there on the ground. It's constantly waking up, and so you wake up super sleep deprived, and we had planned picking up a friend in town because she was flying in into Bismarck, and then also we had already planned to go into town and protest in front of the jail. And so we went, and we were singing songs and still praying, and I remember speaking in front of the cops, and it was you're in town in this, like, in front of the jail, and we're in the same outfit that we were the previous day because you're cold. Like, that was my only, like, really good jacket. It was too cold to change. Still had tear gas in my hair, my face, and you're there and you're still fighting because they're not, like, this was just, instead of just making you feel like you're hopeless, you're just like, no, like, you have to keep going. This just fuels you more to keep going and fighting. So we went and then met up with them because they were on their way too. They went to pick up the friend at the airport, or anyway, you picked her up, and we met at the protest. And in front of the jail, I said some words to the police who were met with them with, again, the same gear that they had at the camp. Like they didn't have the gas. One of them had a gas mask, but they had the rubber bullet guns, and then some of them were just holding on to their guns. And one of them was just kind of doing with the baton. And you're just like, they're puffy chested, and they're not all of them, but a few of them, they're just like if we're teasing them to fight, or like we're trying to pick a fight, and we're just there like, you just didn't break our spirits. Like, as much as you try to hurt us, you just didn't. And I had said some words like to them and saying, like, how could you do this to other people? For a moment that Sunday night, I forgot where we were. I forgot that we were in the United States of America. You think you see this in the news, you see this when the military does things like this overseas. And that's where I thought I was. I thought I was in a war zone, and you are in a war zone. You just, it's not Burning Man, so you don't think that this is going to happen, especially because there's no weapons allowed in the camp, no drugs or alcohol. Those are like very strict rules. And so just to be like, go back to town and just tell them, like, you messed up. You did human crimes on other humans. And to be met with police that are still armed, the same way that they were the night before. But we kept going and going, and that action was led by youth, by tribal youth. And so they were just saying prayer, singing songs, and I did see this one cop cry. You know, we were in line singing a song and praying, and sometimes prayer means you're speaking from your heart at the moment and talking about your own experience. And that's what I did, was just kind of say, like, this is what I experienced last night, and I'm still here. Like, you're not breaking our souls. Like, this is so important for us. And yeah, we saw 2 police officers kind of cry, and, you know, they weren't armed and ready to go like some of the other officers next to them were. They were just kind of like in shock, and even they themselves are trying to hide their tears because they know that this is not right. So we did the action, and then I'd asked my friend to take another night at the hotel just so that we can shower, because I could still feel the burning on my face, and I could still feel like breathing through my nose was in my mouth. Like, you could taste it, and it wasn't pepper spray. It was tear gas. So it's just like chemicals, like burning sensation when you breathe. So we were desperate for showers. So I asked her, "Can you get another night so we could shower there?" So we did some errands, picked up some materials in town after the action, got some food, and then went back to the hotel. And we had to do laundry just because everything was just full of tear gas. It was wet. So we go back to the hotel, and then they had already showered. I was kind of behind because we were doing errands. So for me, then they were like Jacob, our friend Claire, and Manny, and me were the other ones at the hotel. And I had already eaten and done whatever I needed to do, so they had to go get food, and they were doing laundry for the team. So I stayed behind at the hotel by myself. And in that hotel room, because they're asking for so much reinforcements to come in from out of town, that's where they're staying. That's where they were sleeping.
So you're in a hotel filled with these militarized law enforcement?
And it just blows your mind, because it's like, if they're off duty, it made me think they were on duty that night. So I'm in the same building as these people. And so they walk away and go do their thing, and I'm showering, kind of, it didn't hit me, but then when I got out of the shower, like, got dressed and brushed my hair, and then was just kind of in there, like, watching the news, it hit me. I was freaking terrified. Wow. And I've never been scared like that before, where you hear the laughs, and you don't even know who's on the other side of the walls, but hearing, like, men laugh was terrifying me. And I was just texting Jacob, like, when are you coming back? And I just kept locking and, like, making sure the doors were locked. And I've never been terrified of police, or I've never been scared like that before. You know, it's just, it makes you feel crazy. So I was just kind of trying to reach out to friends and just kind of keep my mind busy. And I remember calling my dad and didn't want to tell my dad what was going on, because he had just gone through surgery, so I didn't want to get him stressed out. So I was like, hey, Dad, everything's okay. And lying to him just so he wouldn't get worried. But sitting in that hotel room was just the most frustrating, terrifying thing I've ever experienced. And it's just being alone, and you just wanted to be with Jacob, Manny, and Claire. And then by the time they got back, I fell asleep. But when they unlocked it, I jumped out of bed, and I was just like, oh, it's you. Okay, great. It was the worst.
Manny, what sort of, did you experience like that sort of trauma? Did you experience that kind of, I don't know, what the traumatic stress, I guess, from.
Of course.
Yeah.
Like Grecia was saying earlier, so the day after Sunday, we went in town. So the plan, one of the plans was to just spread awareness of what happened yesterday. So we tried to, this intersection, we tried to just shut it down. And there, I want to say 2 Native American youth, and 1 white ally. And we build this human shield on the intersection.
It was like a prayer circle.
Yeah.
But they keep calling it a human shield, but it's not. It's just like we're holding hands. Like sorry, I just wanted.
So. Yeah, we were holding hands, and I remember one of those, there was a lot of police. Well, I perceived a lot of police, and just hearing them talk about people in prayer was just one of the most disgusting things I've ever heard.
How so?
Just the targeting of these people that are in prayer.
This was during the protest in the intersection?
Yeah,
okay.
Yes. And just hearing, like, we want to get them, arrest specifically those people. It was crazy. And then afterwards we go in front of the sheriff's office building. And we just yeah, like Grecia was saying, we're all in the same clothes that we were, where we all stink like smoke and chemicals and pepper spray. Um, we're all still freezing. And I remember being in that group that was speaking to police. I remember seeing just these police ready to like shoot somebody. Just, it felt like they were just itching, just looking for an excuse to shoot these people that all they're doing is praying. So yeah, being met with that hostility, being met with you can just see it in their eyes, was horrible. And I remember looking behind me and seeing at least 7 cops just cornering us in, just completely making a circle around us and just laughing, just looking at us with smiles. And then I look across the street, and there was this lady. And a couple of our other water protectors, trying to protect this lady, this African American woman. One of the police thought that she had stolen a phone. Already had her in handcuffs. I remember recording them and saying, what did she do? What did she do? And all they can say to me is that she fit the description. That's it. She fit the description. And I was amazed. Of course, I start recording, and then this other police officer, he takes out his personal phone and just starts recording me and just says, starts threatening me with, we're going to get you. We're going to get all of you. We're going to use FBI, CIA facial recognition features, and we're going to get you. I know most of you were out of town or come from out of town. We're going to find you. And just hearing that was just amazing, incredibly frustrating and just fearful. Because in the back of your head, like, these people have been doing things that they're not supposed to for how long? Mm-hmm. And I mean, what is there something that they can't do? So that went in my head. And I remember just like, not yelling, but just really firmly talking to every single police officer that wanted to arrest this lady. I remember just talking to them, just talking about mass incarceration, what they're doing is wrong. And I was telling them, what's another body of color to you? Like, you haven't arrested enough of us? And then eventually they let her go. And I was very, very grateful. I was very happy. And I remember one of the police officers recording me said, God bless. And that...
To you?
Yeah. That angered me so much because I don't know why, it just did. I asked him, where was that kind of mentality? Where was that kind of blessing yesterday when you were spraying us down with cold water? Where were you at? Like, yeah. where was those good ideas and good intentions? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. When people were out there potentially life-threatening situations. Mm-hmm.
There are life-threatening situations.
And like Grecia, I was talking to one of the police officers, what I thought was alone, and I remember just telling them, were you not there Sunday? What if that was your brother that got shot behind?
Did you get any reaction from any of the police officers that you spoke to in this way?
Yeah, I was just asking them, like, what if that was your family out there? And I was just being as detailed as I could. Just shot behind the head. I mean, there's a woman that can potentially lose her arm. Mm-hmm. There were so many people hurt. And I was just asking them, like, I honestly hope that your children never have to go through that. And I kept on asking him, like, there's enough room for you here. Just realize what you're doing is wrong. Realize that you are hurting the people that you have sworn to protect. Like, what's the order that's going to be enough for you? Like, what's the order that's going to cross the line for you? And then I remember, like, during the prayer circle, I remember seeing him just trying to hold back the tears. And towards the end, I didn't see him because it's prayer. I had my eyes closed, just thinking of all the people that were hurt, injured, the previous night. And yeah, that was a really new experience for me.
Over 200 people needed medical attention that night.
Yeah. And what was the number? There was, it was like 30 something that actually had to be evacuated, actually had to go to hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Mm-hmm. It was an interesting point you brought up about the delineation. I made a note between human shield and people praying in a circle, and the attempt by powers to be to control the dialogue, to control the narrative around a situation like this. Did you see other instances of that? I mean, other than just blatantly lying about, or not talking about where barricades came from, or saying that protesters had started a fire and that's why they shot everybody with water.
I remember we were having a meal, and we watched some the news come on, and there was a press conference with the sheriff, the Martin County Sheriff, and he was stating that water warriors or like protesters were throwing what were they saying, like logs that were on fire.
Logs that were on fire.
Well, it's just like, think about it. Can somebody physically pick up
A burning
log? And I just thought, like, you sound stupid right now. And can people listen to you and really think about the words that you're saying? And it's just like, they're like, even in their own statements, they sound stupid and like contradicting. And that really also said to me, like, what more BS are you gonna say? And how they were using water cannons to put out fires, and it's like there was no fires. You were using the water cannons like the moment that I was there. You started to use the water cannons, and we're just wetting people. And I know Manny keeps bringing up like historical civil rights movements and. The 1960s, it was the same freaking thing. People, like, just being shot at, like, with strong jets. And it's like, there's no fire. And the fires were created hours after for people that were getting hypothermia to keep warm. Yeah. And we don't have superpowers to throw burning logs at you.
And it seems almost naive on his part. I think I saw that actual press conference, but almost naive in that, really? Because the rest of the world saw this happen too. I watched Kevin Gilbert live stream from the hill overlooking the bridge, and I didn't see anybody spraying any fires that whole time I watched. So,
and it's not like they're having like a focus on one water cannon. It's a focus on like the entire camp, so you could see what's going on, and they're just lying through their teeth. And then that we were aggressive, and then they started to say that we're aggressive when we put on our masks, like in our goggles.
What was this? What did they say? That was an aggressive action, putting on your masks and goggles?
And it's like,
wow.
Are you kidding me? So a lot of those statements, and then, when we do actions, we don't, it's first of all, it's not even safe to leave the camp by yourself. So we caravan a lot. And it's just cops just like, even they're reckless. Like they're just driving down so fast. I don't know. It really gets you to think like this department is just really chaotic. It's unorganized. They don't know what they're doing. They're acting out of fear.
And somebody can get hurt in a situation like that very easily.
And even the cops, when they talk to you, they're stumbling through their words. And specifically when cop was talking to me, and it made it seem like he was scared of me. Because just mumbling and like stuttering and couldn't talk, and pulled me over for running a red light. But it really wasn't that, because I made a left turn on a yellow, and when you turn, it's gonna turn red.
Yeah.
But I didn't run a red light, and if I wouldn't have taken the left, I would have been stuck in the middle of the intersection. So they're looking for any reasons to pull you over, especially if you have out of the area plates. And it's just incredible to me. Like they try to talk to you, and they don't make any sense. They're trying to throw like laws and legal terms at you, and they make no sense.
Okay. No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. If you have more.
To your question, I'm trying to think of other ones that I heard that were just absurd. But mostly that's the most absurd one to me. It's like they're telling you on their microphone, like, putting your goggles and masks is considered an act of aggression. So if you will continue to do that, we will take out more, like, we will attack.
Give you more reason to put on your goggles. Wow.
That's just stupid.
Okay, so I don't know. Maybe the most difficult question then. And I talked with Jacob a little bit about this before she left, before the interview began. What do you bring back from all of this? Mm-hmm. Have you arrived? Have you actually been able to come home yet?
I can go first.
Yeah.
No, it's hard to be back. It's challenging. I was hoping that the drive back would kind of help us decompress and feel better about coming back. But I personally feel a great sense of guilt because I want to be back there fighting because it's not over. And just seeing how this is not the first, the second, or the third time that police get extremely violent towards people in the camp. And there's people out there who have been there for months who have experienced every single one of those actions of brutality. Who are not doing well, like mental health, they're not doing well. Mm-hmm. But they're there because this is so important to them. This is what matters, and this is where they feel like they need to be. And I feel like that same calling, especially, I felt it going there, which is why I went there. But being there, it makes sense. It makes sense why you're fighting on the ground. Why you're saying, even if you tear gas me many times and you cause me pain, I'm still going to be here. I'm still going to disrupt like this system because the system is just failing. And it's even worse. It's like hurting people physically and mentally. And I'm not here. I'm upset. I came back angry. I do feel the sense of urgency. I'm not back. I want to be back because, my job depends on me being present, and it's a challenge. Like I'm avoiding people. I'm being really antisocial, and for those who know me, they know that's not the type of person that I am. I'm avoiding people, short conversations. I'm not being nice. I'm not being rude, but I'm just not cheery. I'm pissed. I'm angry. And seeing what I saw, it's just, how do you just turn around and say, like, it's okay, that's back in North Dakota and you're fine, like, that's not your problem anymore, like, and that's what's been killing me. It's hard to talk about it, and I'm in the same boat as Jacob. Like, all I want to do is talk about Standing Rock, but don't you ask me about Standing Rock. And so when I see Jacob, when I see Manny, it's just this whole, like, I'm happy to see them because it makes me feel like we're still there.
Yeah.
Fighting.
Manny?
Like Jacob, I really do share the sense of nothing seems as important anymore. Mm-hmm. I remember checking back home with family and friends, the little time that I had, the little free time that I had, and just hearing them talking about their day, and nothing is as important as making sure that the people in the water protectors in Standing Rock are safe. Not like just I don't know how to explain it, but just nothing has any meaning anymore. Like, how do you expect somebody to make these bonds in Standing Rock with the people there, and truly being worried, seeing them, just wanting to make sure that they're safe, knowing that they're never gonna all be safe. I'm getting ahead of myself. So
That's the thing with you. You're a protector, aren't you?
yeah, I would like to think so.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just coming back to home is just, I don't feel like I'm back. I feel that I see everybody, all the water protectors. I see Sunday night. I just see it everywhere I go. I see everybody getting hurt. I remember the people that I've seen getting shot. I remember the people that I've helped, especially the 19-year-old kid. I remember not knowing where Grecia or Jacob was. I remember every single emotion. I remember every single feeling that I felt over there. And I also remember the sense of family, the sense of hope, the conversations that I've had with everybody throughout, like, all the other states. But yeah, I just can't escape Sunday night. That's the thing that just gets me the most. When I'm talking to family, when I'm at school, when I'm supposed to be learning about art, I just see that Sunday night. I see the canisters being thrown at us. I feel the concussion grenades go off in my chest. I'm not back. I don't think I'll ever be back, but as long as I know that people are willing to stand up to big oil companies and fight the system and like yell at the top of their lungs the injustice that's happening in Standing Rock, the many issues that we have to change system-wide and within ourselves. Mass incarceration, people are still fighting mass deportation. I'm still losing family members due to the color of their skin. I'm still losing people because they don't have a paper that says that they were born in Arkansas. Like, I am first generation documented citizen, and I know how privileged I am to be here. I know that there's just so many emotions just running through me constantly, especially when I'm with my family. Just lying to them, just saying that everything's okay when it's not, just not wanting to tell them that, like, I've seen so many people get shot. I've been pepper sprayed several times. I remember just everything, just not wanting to come clean to them because I feel like they won't get it. They won't know. I feel, maybe it's bad of me to assume this, but I don't feel like they'll be accepting of the lifestyle that I've chosen, of the values that I have, of the things that I hold important to me.
Why do you think that?
Because being first, I want to say it's a pressure that I feel personally, like being first generation, making sure that everybody is safe, not being too loud. Like, I've always been taught, like, especially because I was born in San Diego and very close to the border, I was always taught to not be loud, not be, like, confrontational with police officers, make sure you never, like, drive in a car full of people of color, never look a cop directly in its eyes. And it's just all these certain rules that I've had to go to live by so I could be, like, quote unquote safe. And I cannot afford to do that. and I won't. I would never be safe as long as people like police officers, like the police officers on Sunday night, still live well within the system.
Carry a badge.
I will never, like, it's a reality that I have accepted a long time ago that people of color and people that are fighting for social justice will never be safe. And I am okay with that.
Wow.
I'm not.
You're not.
And I don't mean to disrespect what Manny's words. It's just, like, I know where he's coming from. There's an injustice all over, and race is definitely an issue in this country. We saw it with the election. We see it now post-election. And we're not talking about it, but we're talking about it in a different way. We're talking about it in a very unhealthy way. And this isn't new. You know, racism isn't a new thing. And I think this has a lot to do with what's happening at Standing Rock. Like, the pipeline was proposed to run through Bismarck, and then the community said no, and so they just moved it over to the reservation. Sacred land. And it's just like, no, you can't just do that. But they do, and they get away with it. And then it's an oil company. An oil company. And then there's people. And that's why, like, I remember when we were at the front lines on Sunday and we started the chant, who do you protect, who do you serve? I couldn't stop crying just chanting that, because it just blows my mind that they're on the other side shooting at us over a pipeline, over a company. And that's just what I'm not okay with. I came back thinking, like, this is what I will do for the rest of my life. I'm not ever going to give up. I'm never going to shut up. I'm not going to step back. But they did instill, like, so much fear in me that for a moment I did have to run. Like, I felt like I ran away and fear took over. And I never want to feel that ever again, because it's not right. It's just not okay.
Other than donating money online, I mean, what else would you recommend? Is there another way that folks can help out?
If you've thought about going to Standing Rock and really think and reflect about your reasons for going, like, this is not Burning Man. This is not, I've never been to Burning Man, so I don't even know. But this is not a place where you're there to kind of be taken care of by the resources. There's very limited resources. So if you're going to go as self-sustainable as you can, like your own materials, sometimes even your own food. Bringing your own food is actually really smart. There were some nights where there's so many people that we didn't get dinner. Like, we didn't eat that day. We snacked, but we didn't eat. The weather is no joke, especially if you're from California. We don't experience cold weather like that, and it's extremely dry. My skin just, like, chafed everywhere, and so it's super dry. You're not there to lounge around. It's hard work. You're either being part of actions, you're either cooking, constructing. Like, there's never a moment where you get rest, and it's really hard on your bodies. I was exhausted for a lot. You know, you're up at 6 a.m., you're in bed by midnight. Like, you're really not just there to...
It's not a vacation.
Do your research. It's what I really wanted people to really understand. It's like, when you think about, like, what's the fight? Oil is the fight. Like, think about it. Like, let that penetrate your brain. Like, this is not just like, oh, people are protesting. Everyone has a freaking right to protest. And if you're protesting against oil companies and you think that's stupid and you think that's wrong, or you think, like, let people do their job, or whatever argument you can think of, reflect on that. Like, that's not, like, be honest and truthfully. Like, is this country representing oil, or are we representing people? So whatever counter argument that you have for me, like, please do your own research, read, look at the videos that are out there about Sunday night. And if you could honestly sit on your couch and think, like, that's how people should be treated, then I don't know about you. But just don't do that. Just don't come out with those kind of arguments. really learn. And this is not just about like oil companies all across the country and all over the world have had gas leaks, and like Flint, like there's waters that are being contaminated and that are not being able to drink, and this is what we're preventing. And this could potentially be Standing Rock next year. There's pipelines that are running through that are being proposed here in California, all the way to Oregon. Get involved, get informed. There's so much out there that people really need to learn and know. And it has to come also with like personal responsibility. So that's one. Also, police officers out there, really think about who you're serving. Really think about why you're joining law enforcement and why you've been in law enforcement. The cop that pulled me over, I was older than him. I'm only 27 years old. And he saw me as an enemy, unarmed, and just driving a car. So really law enforcement, like, we've seen so much history with police brutality that if you are wearing a badge, really think about what that means and who you're protecting and who you're serving.
Manny?
Like Grecia, I would like to bring up, yes, there is still not clean water in Flint, Michigan. And that's something I feel like a lot of people overlook. I feel like a lot of people, that's old news. That does not affect me. Why should I even care?
Yeah.
And just hearing people and some of the locals, how they talk about the water protectors and how they see people that are like fighting and protecting the water that their future generations are going to be able to drink baffles me. I've heard a lot of arguments of how many jobs that the pipeline will bring. It's really disgusting how these people view money versus like humans.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
I wanted to add a few more things to that, is that when there's big pipelines, fracking, drilling, etc., it brings a lot of men into the workforce, which creates man camps. And there's, since those, that company has gone into North Dakota and that whole region, there's been man camps, which means that, you know, a lot of prostitution, a lot of sex trafficking happens, a lot of drugs. That in those communities, a lot of women have gone missing. And that's another untold story about Standing Rock. There's a lot of women and children being sex trafficked, abused and beaten and killed. And that's another result of this pipeline. And so that's kind of an untold story. And I know that here in Crescent City, there's been some conversations and talks and events around sex trafficking, and this is just like another related part to sex trafficking that is really important. And that, because it reminded me when Manny said like this creates jobs, and it's like, yeah, it brings men or whatever, but like that leads to man camps, and those are a result to it. But that's what I wanted to add.
Thank you very much, both of you. Thank you.
And then just for the like, you donate at the website that Jacob said. I personally, my goal is to fundraise enough for a yurt to send or to build in at Standing Rock, and those cost around $5,000 to $10,000. If we can get more than one, awesome. But my personal goal is to do that. So I'm collaborating with some people here, asking for donations. I don't have any kind of website up yet and running, but I'll be talking to some friends of mine who have taken the lead ever since I left to Standing Rock.
When you have that information, let us know too, and we'll
I
put it
will.
on our web stuff and on the air as well. Okay. Anything else?
Another tactic that we talked about is, these are big banks that are supporting this pipeline, like Wells Fargo, Bank of America. And so people have asked to withdraw your money from that bank and switch to maybe a more local bank to kind of, that shows also solidarity, and it's like monetary impact that you're causing the banks, which hopefully makes them withdraw their investment. So that's another way you can help. Even though I gave the whole spiel, like, this is not burning camp, but if you are really, your heart is asking you to go to Standing Rock with the best intentions, go. You should go. But be ready to fight and be a water warrior. So I think those are the ways you can do. I hope to go back. It will get colder. It will start to snow. When we were there, it snowed one night or 2 nights. I don't remember.
Once in the morning.
Yeah, it snowed in the morning, and it does get really cold. You lose sensation on your toes, all of that. So, but if you really want to go, come prepared. But I think it's a good way to also show solidarity is to actually be there present.